Okay, Boston.
Nothing to play for.
All right. Welcome into the Aftershock. Jamon Moore, Alex Morgan, Robert Jonas. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're looking definitely for your comments, guys. I think we're going to end up in about the same spot with this. The Quakes get off to a rip-roaring start. They look great for about the first 15, 20 minutes. And by the way, MLS games tend to play in cycles. And usually after the first 15, 20 minutes, games change anyway. But with a 1-0 lead, it's almost like they just decided to protect the 1-0 lead the rest of the night and make sure they walked away with the point. Particularly that second half, really weird stuff. Defensive substitutions, Cade going to the flag at the end of the game instead of playing for a win there. This team's not clinched the playoffs. What's going on? Alex, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated with that game, Jamon, because I thought that they came out really strong, that Luchi Gonzalez set the team up well in the 3-5-2, changing it up, getting Matthew Hoppe centrally. We liked him there, getting Paul Marie on the left wing playing, with Matthew Hoppe in the same lineup. It was a good attacking dynamic setup, and the Quakes did well in the first half, but they very clearly do not know how to approach these second halves and how to play it specifically in the period from the 45th minute to the 60th minute. They have allowed a goal in that period in each of their last 4 games. They allowed a goal right before the 60th minute mark in Minnesota. They allowed a goal right before the 60th minute mark against Nashville. They allowed a goal right before the 60th minute mark against Portland Timbers. And that's where these games are falling apart for the Quakes. Luchi Gonzalez is not being proactive enough about, getting on early subs and making changes. It feels like he's being very reactive in that second half period. And the Quakes are kind of, as a result, limping to the finish line in a lot of these games, barely holding on to results. And that's not good enough. Tonight was a huge opportunity for them to clinch a spot in the playoffs. They were 45 minutes away from clinching a spot in the playoffs. And then they approached the second half without urgency, without, any inspiration. That's really disappointing to me to see the way that they ended this game, given the stakes.
Robert.
Yeah, I think all you really need to do is go back and listen to the opening show credits to understand this Quakes teams right now. This coasting away strategy is to a draw every week is not necessarily going to make it to the playoffs. It still could, as folks are pointing out in the chat already. The Quakes can proceed with a draw into the playoffs as long as Minnesota and Kansas City draw in their game against each other. But that's not the kind of inspiring performance you want to see with a couple weeks left in the season. Alex, I'm with you. I was saying a few choice words at my television screen tonight as I was watching the Quakes sort of just taking not seize on any opportunity tonight, and especially in that last minute where they're just triangle in the corner, kind of wasting time. It was like just take a cross, pop a cross in there and see what happens. A lucky goal, a great goal, and you're in the playoffs, and that's all it takes.
That might have been up there with my most frustrating moments ever watching this Quakes team. I mean, you're playing against FC Dallas. They're 9th in the table, below you in the table. You're most likely going to be playing them in the playoffs, and you're like throwing up a white surrender flag, holding the ball in the corner in the 92nd minute when they realistically don't have time to counterattack. Like, what are you doing in that situation? I cannot believe this Earthquakes team has gotten to this point in this season where they are desperately trying to hold on to a draw just in order to, have the chance to decide their future in the last game against Austin.
Yeah. I mean, it was a golden point against Minnesota. I agree with Luchi when he talked about that midweek, but I don't think you put any sort of shine on this tie. It was, you're keeping Dallas behind you in the standings, but they had that game in hand, and you're basically putting yourself in 9th place by not getting the win tonight.
Yeah. So the way that I think is useful to look at is from I don't know what the probabilities are yet. All the games, have to get them in and rerun everything. But at this point, for me, it feels like the highest probability is you had to beat FC Dallas at FC Dallas tonight, or you most likely will have to beat FC Dallas at FC Dallas in the playoffs. Like, pick your game. You had to do it tonight, or you're going to have to do it in the playoffs,
Yep.
and you had the opportunity to do it tonight. Why would you not try to shut the door? If you get 3 points tonight, if you can beat Austin next week, which then you don't have to, but if you do, now you're looking at 7th. Now you're looking at skipping the St. Louis line and going to, LAFC or Real Salt Lake or whoever ends up in second place, right? So, it's really strange when you have an opportunity to make sure you don't come back here in the first round and you get a game at home that you don't just use tonight to make sure that happens.
Look, this is not new, Jamon. This is not new. This is exactly how Luchi Gonzalez has been playing since, Leagues Cup. The Quakes have won 2 times in their last 10 games since Leagues Cup, and they've drawn a bunch of times. They've drawn, each of their last 3 games, and that's because Luchi Gonzalez is playing conservatively in these games. He's willing to take these draws when he really should be pushing for a win. If he had won one more match in that 10-game stretch, the Quakes would be in the playoffs, no doubt. They wouldn't be worrying at this point. But they've been playing so conservatively. They haven't been putting on early subs. They've been playing reactionary in the second half. This is not the exception. This has been the rule for the Quakes this season, that they're not willing to take risks and chances in these situations in order to be the protagonist. And that's really disappointing because, even if they win at Austin next weekend, it's going to feel
no, it's at home,
like,
not at Austin.
Sorry. A win against Austin at home, it's going to feel like they're limping into the playoffs. This is
they made it rather than they went for 7th, right? And either made it or came so close.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know why they have a lack of faith in their attackers to go and score goals and get points. I mean, Luchi Gonzalez set them up for this. The Cade Cowell holding the ball in the corner at the end only happened because Luchi Gonzalez brought off Jeremy Abobasi and put on Judson, because he brought off Christian Espinosa and put on Jonathan Mensah, because he basically got rid of all the attackers by the end of the game and signaled very clearly that he was playing for the draw, that he personally was going to accept a draw out of this game. So this is entirely on Luchi Gonzalez here. And I feel like it was a huge mistake the way that he played and handled the second half.
So first off, let's talk about the opening part of the game. Let's talk about the positives, because they pretty much all happened in the first 10, 15 minutes, right? The team did come out very strong, really took it to FC Dallas. I thought surprised them a bit with the fluidity of the formation, the interchangeability of the attackers. They had Hoppy going to both sides. They had Marie kind of almost as a free player, figuring out where he needed to be and when. It was a change off of the standard formation a bit. We were told before the game it might look 3-2-5-ish, but in defensively it was still a 4-4-2. But in the attack, it had some different components to it. And then once they, after the first 10, 15 minutes, it felt like FC Dallas pretty much had figured it all out, and there was no surprise anymore. But that opening goal, Jeremy Abobasi and Jackson Ewell, taking the cutback. My personal opinion, FC Dallas defense should not have let that ball through to the 6. But credit to the Quakes for taking advantage of the situation. Robert, how did you see the opening 15?
Yeah, I think, and the other name to throw in there, Christian Espinosa, flashing his MVP credentials for that first 15, 20 minutes of the game as well. And then I think a lot of that had to do with the way you saw Hoppy play maybe a little more up the field, and that was sort of keeping Dallas defenders a little further back than and giving Espinosa just a bit more space. And he and Capo were playing very nicely together. I thought Paul Marie was fantastic in the first half. I don't think he put a wrong foot forward at all in any substantial way. And I think that also allowed, again, the Quakes to have both wings to their disposal to be able to try to take advantage of Dallas. You're right about Dallas figuring it out, and at that point, they were just bossing the center of the field and just moving the ball up with a lot of success. Buzz, I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Buzz Carrick, who does Third Degree Net, the FC Dallas site that's been there since the league's beginning, kind of made a funny comment about the Quakes were playing Nico ball and the Dallas was playing Luchi ball, and that the possessions were completely mixed in that first half. And it kind of was that way. It felt very much like, there was a bit of a role reversal, but it was suiting the Quakes quite nicely at times. And again, I'm with you, Alex. It seemed like the halftime talk was more about what we do to maintain, as opposed to what we do to, put our foot on the throat and get out of here with the 3 points and a celebration.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. Again, I want to give Luchi credit for the way he set up this team at the beginning of the game. I thought that Matthew Hoppe playing in a second striker role was really successful. I love the way that he was able to collect the ball with his back to goal, turn, carry it, and then lay it off to Espinosa or another one of the attackers and get the Quakes going on quick, direct attacks through the middle. That was really valuable. That's not something that we get with Jamon Moore playing in that number 10 position in a regular 4-3-3. I liked the fact that it put Christian Espinosa in a lot of dangerous spaces at the top of the box. You had, him taking a couple really dangerous shots from the area right there. He had a couple of dangerous passes into a Capo who was getting some good overlapping runs. I like the way that it allowed this offense to be dynamic and to push the tempo and to pressure Dallas in that first half. And it was successful. And then the second half, it was pretty clear that Dallas had figured out. And Luchi Gonzalez was just slow. He was slow to make changes. We were screaming in the patron Slack that the Quakes needed to make changes. You could sense that the momentum was changing in that game by about the 46th, 47th, 48th minute. Dallas had multiple opportunities in the first 5-10 minutes of that second period. That goal that they scored was not a one-off. Tanner Beeson had already been beaten in that exact same position. Danielle had to come up with a couple good stops and a couple good positions to keep the Quakes ahead at that point. It was not a surprise that Dallas scored when they did, because quite frankly, at that point, the substitute that needed to happen was Matthew Hoppe. Matthew Hoppe had been running up and down the field the whole game, and he had been doing a great job, but it was clear he didn't have the legs to continue doing that. He was not able to press that number 6. And as a result, in that second half, Dallas were just bossing the midfield. They were able to break that first line of defense every single time, to pick their heads up and to, off balance the Quakes. And that's exactly how they scored. If you look at their goal, Matthew Hoppe could have been tracking the number 6, and he wasn't. That allowed him to pick up his head, play that ball behind. Tanner Beeson gets beat, and the Quakes go behind. If Luchi Gonzalez had been a little bit quicker, a little bit faster with that substitutions, able to sense those issues, I think the Quakes would not have dropped points in this game. I think if he'd brought on Jamon Moore or even Jack Skane earlier in the game, I don't think that the Quakes would have dropped points in this one. And the fact that, we could all see it from a million miles away, and the fact that that's exactly what's happened in like the last 4 games the Quakes have played, and he hasn't learned that lesson, is really frustrating to me. And it makes me worried going into this Austin FC game, because at this point, I don't know if the Quakes have it in them to get a win. It's simple enough to say, oh, the Earthquakes can win and they're in, but they've won 2 out of their last 10. So that's not a good bet to make. That is a losing bet to make, to leave it up to the Quakes to win at home in this last game. That is not as easy as everyone is making it sound.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to disagree with some of the Hoppe points, but I want to come back to that because I want to talk specifically about how Hoppe tonight affected that first half. I'm going to kick it over to Robert for his thoughts first.
Yeah, kind of finishing the first half, which almost finished with a 2-0 lead, other than Grace's thundering shot, which had the goalkeeper beat, but that pesky crossbar got in the way, and that also felt. I wrote that down on my game notes as like momentum. Like you go into the half, you're like, oh, that would have been awesome, but you kind of feel fired up for that effort to see him almost score against his former team like that. But no, I didn't see a lot out of Graco in the second half to make me think that he kind of understood the urgency of the game as well. And so just something lacking in the water there at Toyota Stadium, maybe from the visitors' locker room, because there were signs that they could come out in the second half, make adjustments, and it didn't seem like any of that happened. So yeah, Jamon, over to you. I thought Hoppe played fine. I kind of with Alex here. I think he was a big part of why the team looked really good in the first 10-15 minutes, the way he was able to keep Dallas on kind of unbalanced at points, especially in their center backs. Alex, I think you might be right. It just, he sort of tired off, and that was something that just made it more and more in Dallas's favor.
Yeah, so first off, just a reminder to fans, like press conferences are not times for us to make statements. They are an opportunity for us to ask questions. Certainly, we can ask why the second half was approached so defensively when the opportunity was there to win the game. But it's not a time for us to say what we think Luchi should have done instead. Alex got away with it a little bit a couple weeks ago because I think he formed it as a question. But got his points across. So it's sometimes in the creativity of the question, right, Alex? Let me talk a little bit about the Matthew Hoppe thing. So I agree. I liked him starting. I'm okay with it. I really am. I'm okay with him starting at that 10. But here's what happened. Once the Quakes scored, he became a liability because the problem with the Hoppe formula is that he's there to help you get a goal when you need a goal. And as soon as you no longer need a goal, the Quakes needed to have the ability to hold on to the ball, and they didn't have the player who is kind of best at holding on to the ball in this team. As much as we get on to Jamiro Montero, he's probably still the best person to hold on to a ball and be able to take fouls and be able to get the game forward and get the Quakes back in possession and things like that. And without him, the Quakes just kind of played hope balls up to Jeremy Abobasi and occasionally to Hoppe, neither one of which was able to hang on to the ball and be able to give some hold-up play and allow the Quakes to get out. And part of the problem is you don't have the ability to get the ball to a Jamiro Montero who can get you out of that situation. So they just played those balls forward. And I think like it's a weird thing to suggest because it's not something a coach is going to do. But honestly, the best thing that could have happened in this game is the Quakes score 3 minutes in, immediately sub off Hoppe, put on Jack Skane or put on Montero, and somebody hold on to the dang ball over the next, 40 some odd minutes and let them get out of their own half, because that's actually, I think having Hoppe on went from a positive to being kind of a negative once they got the goal. And of course, you're not expecting a 3rd-minute goal. So you're starting the game expecting, hey, we're going to try to get a goal, maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes into the half, as soon as their defense starts to wear. And as soon as the press, changes and things like that, we'll look for our opportunities. That didn't happen because of the early goal. And it's one of the reasons I actually hate early goals. Teams don't tend to do well on the road when they score early. Home teams always get back into games. And that's exactly what happened tonight. Let's talk about, the defensive situation, because again, we are seeing a lot of comments in the chat, and some of them were about 5 minutes ago, but there was a number of them also criticizing again, starting Beeson over Mensah. And Beeson tonight did get picked on. I mean, they definitely knew to try to pick on him. Paul Arriola, Obrian, Jesus Ferreira, they were all finding opportunities to work that side, work that their right side, the Quakes left side, and look to find balls in behind. And while they Quakes got away with a couple over the bar or offside or whatever, it came back to bite a little bit later on. Does Jonathan Mensah do better in those situations? I am highly skeptical. I think he actually fouls them and gives them a penalty, more likely. But that's what I've been seeing from Jonah Mensah the second half of the season. Alex, over to you first. Would you be starting the more experienced veteran at this point, or would you continue with Tanner Beeson, or does it really matter?
I don't think it really matters, Jamon. We've seen both of them succeed at times this season. We've seen both of them, fail at certain times this season. And I'm not well placed enough to know exactly who is going to make the difference each night. What I can say is that this San Jose Earthquakes defense has, across the kind of the field, not been good enough this season. And the only reason that hasn't been incredibly obvious is because of Danielle in goal. And Danielle, once again tonight, makes 2 or 3 game-changing saves. And he is the reason that this Earthquakes defense hasn't embarrassed themselves the way that they did last season, right? If the Quakes don't have Danielle in goal, I don't think this season the Quakes are anywhere near making the playoffs this season. I think he's covered up a lot of underlying issues in this roster. And yeah, I think they could reasonably be, 14th in the Western Conference, 13th, 14th in the Western Conference if they don't have Danielle, who's made a bunch of game-saving, stops this season. So I think that there are issues across the board, and whether or not you choose, Jonathan Mensah or Tanner Beeson to go in the back line is really, kind of a wash.
Robert?
Yeah, I think the only thing it may change is just who your center back is partnering with respect to your fullbacks. I mean, watching Miguel Trauco from the beginning of the season to closer to the end, I'm just not seeing the same player with respect to his sort of energy, his drive to get forward, and even in his pure defensive role, I don't feel like he's kind of at 100% in the same way we saw at times earlier in the year. And so when you are pairing Beeson with Trauco on one side of the field, you've got a couple of players with feet that are not going to be as fleet, and Dallas took full advantage. Maybe with Mensah in there, you can flip Mensah and Rodriguez and play things a little bit differently in terms of partnerships, and maybe that makes a difference. But Alex, I'm with you. It was interesting listening to the commentators tonight, because while I know the national commentators won't know all the stories, they can only play off of narratives, and they were very kind of effusive in their praise for Luchi Gonzalez and turning things around. But I think we saw it in the comments. It's Danielle who's turned this team around, and he was a one difference on this roster from a lot of familiar faces from a year ago. And whether what doesn't matter whether Mensah starts or Beeson, I'm not sure. I don't think so. And I would have, if you're going to play defensive, maybe bring that third center back in maybe a bit earlier than they did tonight, because you've got a third partner there. But whether you start one or the other, I think is purely up to the coach, and I don't think you can say one decision is worse than the other.
I will say there's
All right,
one interesting new piece here, which is Jonathan
90%.
Mensah's nomination for the MLS Awards.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's post-game press conference with head coach Luchi Gonzalez following our 1-1 draw with FC Dallas. We will start with a question from Alex Morgan.
Hey, Luchi. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to speak with you. You made a bunch of defensive substitutions at the end of that game, taking off Jeremy, putting on Judson, taking off Christian, putting on Mensah in the back line. You had Cade Cowell holding up the ball in the corner at the end of the game. It felt very clear that in the second half here, as you were entering the last 30 minutes, the goal was to play for a draw. And I'm just curious, with the remaining scenarios in the playoffs, why that was kind of the mentality that you had going into this the end of this game.
Yeah, so the first two subs were Cade and Mito, right? Those were considered attacking-minded players. So our first round of subs were to push the game, and that's after we conceded. So that's a clear intention, right, to keep a good balance of defending and attacking. And then, yeah, look, as the game went on, Dallas were pushing numbers heavily. And I thought we were pretty fortunate not to concede in those moments. And at the end of the day, like, if we go, if we don't make the right subs to try to defend well and we lose that point, then we could lose and Kansas City could tie in the last game. And now we're out because of win differential, or even the same for Minnesota. So the point is important. The point allows us to still have an edge. Now, it's very clear, we're disappointed. We were winning and we didn't close that out in a way to qualify tonight, so that's disappointing. I thought we had a fantastic first half, getting pressure on the ball, attacking sequences, defensive organization, and it could have even been 2-0 first half, but it didn't. And look, we knew Dallas was going to come. I thought we started the second half quite well, and then minute 54, 55, things started to bounce their way. They're pushing numbers, and they scored on a sequence that we're disappointed that we gave up. But look, at the end of the day, the first round of subs were to also have balance defensively and still have attack and try to find a way to win. But when we were in a position where they're being aggressive, and we're having to find a good balance and compactness defensively, then we sub the way we need to sub to get the point. The point's going to still give us some type of advantage with those other teams. Now, we know against Austin we have to win to guarantee qualification. To guarantee qualification. If we don't win, then things are out of our control. But that's the balance of it, and that was the logic, and no regrets on some. Like, disappointed we didn't hold on to the one or score the second, or score a second, whether we conceded or not. Yeah, I mean that's certainly a reflection we'll have. But I thought we did the right things in terms of the points and adding to what we want to do here. And now going home and doing the best, we taking care of business against Austin.
Next, we'll go to Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, Luchi, I want to push on that a little bit, because at the end of the game, you do have an opportunity to be able to score, but you have Cade taking it to the corner, and then you had Jamiro also with an opportunity to go 1v1 into the box and also playing very passive. If you don't win tonight, the highest probability is that you might be coming back to Dallas and have to win in the playoffs. So why not go for a win there at the very end? Were you disappointed in those decisions, or did you feel that was the right thing to do given the circumstance? Thanks.
Muted.
Nobody's telling Mito not to go score, right? And when Cade's taken to the corner there, I think there's 20 seconds left, and and I'm not sure there's a clear advantage for him to score. I have to look at the tape. I have to see that again. I mean, maybe, and that's reading the game. But for me, I don't fault the players in any way. There was a clear idea that at the end, if there's committing numbers and I mean, we were half passes away from even slipping a ball behind and being one-on-one with their keeper. It was hard. It was hard. They had a good defensive transition, and at the very, very end, getting the point is super valuable. What happens if we don't beat Austin and Kansas City beats Minnesota, or Minnesota beats Kansas City, right? Or even tie. Think about this. What happens if we lose, we don't get the point, and Minnesota and Kansas City tie, right? And then we're out. I think there's a clear logic that the tie helps, but it's not ideal. We would have loved to qualify tonight, but if we go all out, you can lose balance, and we have to respect that Dallas were creating more danger, and yeah, we took a defensive approach there at the end. But my first round of subs were not indicative of that, and we go from there. But these things are never perfect, and again, if we could have chose in preseason to go home and to get a win to qualify for playoffs, and obviously I would have loved to guarantee playoffs tonight and even earlier. It hasn't happened. But if we could have been in this position to go home and go fight for a win to qualify and guarantee ourselves playoffs, and even a point tonight helps us maybe have a higher seed. So let's go. Let's do this. No regrets. We'll do a reflection. That's my feeling right now. We'll do a reflection and we'll go from there.
Next, we'll go to Robert Jonas.
Thanks, Coach. Midweek we talked about how you do control your playoff destiny, and you still do. You're absolutely right. You go home, you win that game, you're in the playoffs, maybe 8th, maybe 9th, the way things seem to be stacking up right now. You've got a couple weeks now, not just to look at tape and to plan, but to reflect on what the team wasn't able to do. You mentioned how players make decisions, and the decisions are all part of the game situation as they see it. But what can you and the coaching staff do to make to get your guys playing? I guess like they did in the first 20, 30 minutes. And again, Dallas did, I think, adjust to the way you guys were playing. But what is it that has to happen so this team can put a complete performance together?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I thought we were awesome first half. I thought we were awesome. And we even spoke in a way at halftime, like, hey, we're hungry for more. Well, let's have let's put the pressure on them again. Let's attack them more and have some good vertical sequences. But the game is like that, guys. Go look at stats when you're winning, tying, and losing. When you play a good team and you're at their place and they're also desperate to qualify. They're committing numbers. They're raising their level of urgency, and we had we're kind of responding to that, trying our best to absorb it and respond to it, and then push our own momentum. But it's always easier said than done. And I'm going to grab that we had a really good first half away. I'm going to grab that we got a point in Minnesota and a point in Dallas, which are not easy places to get points. And we're playing our direct rival in the table. So I'll grab that. But I don't want to dwell too long about what we didn't do or what we could have. We could do that for the rest of our life, and not just soccer, but our personal. I'm going to grab the things that I'm proud of in our process and how we act, how we play. Grab the first half today, use it as a reference, certainly own the fact that we let up in the second half in certain ways that we're disappointed with, and certainly how we conceded that goal. So certainly we're going to face that and acknowledge that. But then, like, let's go. Let's go show that we can have a complete game. Like, we have the potential to do it, and we got to work to find a way to do that. So with that's definitely our aim, Robert. And but I believe in it, in doing it, and definitely acknowledging the things that we're not happy with. But let's grab and know and believe and trust in ourselves that we can have these high level moments. And how can we sustain them? And with subs, with changes, we've gotten better with changes. I think we're in a point though with this roster. It's the most competition. We have guys that have not traveled that have almost made every roster, and it's super competitive right now. And I think that's a good thing to grab right now, and as we approach the end of this last push and extend the season.
Thank you, everyone. That is it for head coach Luchi Gonzalez. We will be back with a player momentarily.
All right, let's get both of us back off mute there. So Robert, so Luchi is saying that he would, in analyzing kind of the outcomes that they needed to get tonight, the decision that they made to go to first off, he took issue with the comment that and Alex, I'll you're going to want to get on this too. He took issue with saying that the first two subs were defensive, and okay, I can kind of give him that point. But I changed my question at the very last minute because I just did not get why go to the corner. If anything bothered me more than anything else with the way that ended, it wasn't putting on defensive subs and ensuring the point. Clearly, there's mathematical reasons in the playoff formulas for ensuring a point, and he's right. If they lose the game, it's going to put them in a really tough situation. That said, you're not going to lose the game with Cade Cowell getting in a 1v1 situation with a chance to go into the box. It literally with 2 minutes of stoppage time and in the first minute of that stoppage time. It's just not going to happen. So what did you think of his answers, Alex? I certainly didn't care for what he gave to me.
First of all, I mean, he was bailed out by Quakes PR there. I had more questions for him. I told the Quakes PR.
By the way, we got a player. Jeremy Bobassi is there right now.
Hello, everyone. We
needed more time with him.
Jeremy Bobassi here for our post-game press conference. We will start with a question from Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, Jeremy. Thanks for taking some time after an away game. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you. It's been a little while. Kind of a curious end to the game. Hoping you can shed a little light on it for us. The playoff scenarios clearly favor if you guys can find a way to get 3 points in this game. First off, you lock in the playoffs and you have a great chance to be able to get 7th place or better in the conference. A draw means you might be right back here playing FC Dallas for the play-in game, to start off the tournament. So, from your perspective, should you guys have maybe gone for the jugular there at the end when you had the opportunity, or did you think it was best to protect the point and take the ball to the corner? Thanks.
Muted.
Yeah, I think it was really important to protect the point. When we came into the game from the beginning, we wanted to go for 3. We wanted to clinch playoffs tonight. And we started off quite well in that. I think they naturally are going to get some chances and build some momentum at home, as any home team would, but we did a pretty good job of repelling those and guys making plays. Ultimately, that dam broke a little bit, but you have to manage each situation. So we were still making attacking subs as the game went on, and then there came a point where the point is still very valuable. We can't predict what's going to happen on decision day or the games before that, but ultimately we don't want to be giving away points at the expense of trying to go maybe for 3 in a situation where we're leaving ourselves open on the road to a team that's got pace and can hit us on the counter. So I think we managed that game as best as possible, especially after conceding in the second half. And look, I've been around enough to know that decision day is crazy. We can still finish 7th or maybe even higher. And games in hand have to be won. They're not an automatic 3 points. So we will see how the teams do, and we'll be ready to push for the highest position possible on last day.
Next, we'll go to Ivan.
Good evening, Jeremy. With the game, how it went in previewing the second half, there was a lot more defending that had to be done than attacking. And you're usually one of the furthest players up on the field. So being disconnected from the action a lot of the time, how do you adjust gameplay-wise as well as mentally to try to stay focused while you're contributing on the field?
Yeah, I mean, we attack as a team and we defend as a team. Doesn't matter whether we're pressing forward or in a low block. We're finding ways to get in spots, get pressure on the ball, and make the job easier on the next person right next to you, behind you, and in front of you. So, I take a lot of pride in that role that's being asked of me this year, and how it's been tailored to what the team needs from the striker positions. I think as a mental adjustment, I mean, you have to be aware that maybe you're not going to get as much rhythm, as much fluidity on your touches, and you try to be as lethal as you can with what you do get. In the second half, we weren't able to execute on the counters and the spells of attacking possession that we had. But again, I think when we come away with 1 point here, it gives us a little bit more of a buffer. But we do want to go for the win, and frankly, I think we have to win against Austin. So we've gone through a lot this year, and we've attacked well, we've defended well, we've been faced with adversity, and have excelled at different points in the year. So I think all of that is going to be invaluable experience as we head into Austin.
Next, we'll go to Robert Jonas.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. You do control your own playoff destiny at this point. You win against Austin, you're in the playoffs, position to be determined. I want to focus a little bit on the first half in terms of what can be learned from that moving forward. And I know you're not the coach, but on the player's perspective, you an excellent goal, by the way, a fantastic awareness to get in the box on that cross from Jackson Ewell. But what I was noticing a lot over those first 20 minutes or so was the way you and Matthew Hoppe were occupying defenders in a way that we haven't seen too often this season, with him playing almost as a second forward for most of that time. What did you learn, and what did you kind of gain a perspective of in having Matthew up the field with you that you and he and some of the other attackers can learn from with this very important game coming up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think Matthew stepped up and came into the team in the summer and worked really hard to get the minutes that he's gotten. And he's been asked to fill several different roles, and he's had a good attitude about that. So as teammates, we need to be in positions to continue his integration, whether he's playing on the left, on the right, or in this case, as kind of a second striker. He brings a different profile to some of the other guys that have played in that position. And, with both of us being striker type players, that gives you a vertical kind of pairing that you may not necessarily get if I'm alone as a number 9, or if Matthew's alone as a number 9 and we've got number 10. So that it means that we have to split some of the responsibilities, coming to the ball, stretching the field, etc., versus our roles being super, super clear and distinct. But it's something that gives us a different look if we need to go to it. As you said, I'm the player. I can't predict how we're going to line up, who's going to be on the field, but we are very confident that whether you have 2 profiles of number 9s up top, or you have a 9 and a 10 who press in that 4-4-2 and then get in kind of that 4-2-3-1, or any of the other formations that we've tried out, we're confident that we'll be able to execute at home.
We'll take a final question from Alex Morgan.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for joining us tonight. Good to speak to you. That period right before the hour mark has been quite difficult for you guys for the last 4 games. You allowed in the 57th minute today, in the 56th minute against Minnesota, 50th against Nashville, 58th against Portland. I'm curious what you think is making that period so difficult, whether you think that it's something about the way you guys are starting the second half, or the timing of the subs that is making that period hard for you guys.
Yeah, that's good insight. I think we are consistently analyzing the trends and the through lines. We've given up some goals right before half. We've given up some goals right after half, as you kind of just named. And I think it's the mental awareness that we need to continue to build on. Early on in the year, we were giving up some goals late in the game, and we really wanted to focus on that, and we've done a good job. The last, I want to say, couple, if not few weeks to months, there haven't been a lot of goals after the 88th minute or so. So we need to continue to take that approach when we come to an acknowledgement that, yes, we are conceding goals after half, and it's not where we want to be, right? We don't want to be either digging holes for ourselves or kind of undoing some of the tough work that we did in the first half. And, as I said, we've been through a lot this year. We're together, and we've got 2 weeks to prepare, analyze, reflect, and go forward.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes tonight's post-game press conference.
Thanks.
All right, let's get everyone off mute and back. So, guys, we didn't really even get to react to the first press conference before we got the second. But it was nice to get Jeremy Abovisi. It had been a while since we got a chance to talk to him. Got the goal tonight. I guess, I don't know, Robert, jump into something wherever you want to.
Yeah,
based on what you heard from either of those.
I'll start with kind of the response to your question, which is, protect the point, which is pretty much almost the only note I wrote down from the second half there, the presser. In that, I don't know if that was the post game talk, like we did it, we protected the point, or if that was part of the mentality all along. That if we get a draw, that's fantastic. If we get a win, that's really fantastic. But then you're setting yourself up to get the point, and not all three. I do want to go back to Luchi. I don't want to forget my thoughts there, and that was clever on the Quakes to get a player out as quickly as they did, because Luchi, I think, to my question, and I wanted to he acknowledged, I think, a few points in his answer about just that, I guess, mentality. That he was saying it's up to players to make those decisions, but it's up to coaches to make sure players make the decisions according to the game state. And I do feel that he has to look at that over these next couple of weeks and recognize how much in the game planning may need to go into a team that desperately needs to play all 90 minutes like they were playing the first 15 tonight, and that his role is to make sure that he makes the adjustments so they can keep doing that. And that's not what I really saw tonight. I think your question to Jeremy there, Alex, was perfect. I'll let you kind of comment on the response in terms of, sort of those defensive letdowns and just sort of that, kind of more passive approach to the second half has been quite an Achilles heel these last couple of months. And it's now putting it in a position where, okay, win and you're in. But, for as long as the summer's been, this is a team that, should be in the playoffs, but given the early season form, and now may not be in the playoffs if the things don't go well on decision day. Alex, to you.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Jeremy's answer to that question. That was the question that I wanted to ask Luchi Gonzalez, and that was a question that Luchi Gonzalez needed to be asked as the coach. And the Quakes PR team ended that press conference after 3 questions, did not even let Ivan, who was sitting on there, get a question, even though I had asked for more questions. And quite frankly, I don't think it's not good enough at this stage in the season. It's the penultimate game of the season with the playoffs on the line for all of us only to be able to get 3 questions. I mean, Luchi Gonzalez needs to be able to take a little bit more heat than that. They need to trust in him to be able to answer those questions and, respond with class and respond in a way that instills confidence in this organization. It is not instilling confidence in this organization to prematurely shut down all those questions and shut down those press conferences. That's again just a sign of insecurity and weakness to me. That is not how this organization should be approaching this moment. So that's my first kind of gripe, just to get it off the table. I mean, my second gripe is that I don't know what Luchi is cooking about these playoff strategies. I completely disagree with his logic about the draw here. He both him and Jebo seem to be hung up on the fact that this was a huge monumental point for the Earthquakes to get. I really don't think it does much for them. I mean, if they won this game, they're into the playoffs. They would have clinched a playoff spot and had a chance at getting a home playoff game, or at very worst, like a home play-in game. That is huge upside that they have. And the only downside to losing, the only way that this point helps, is if the Quakes lose against Austin. It's if they lose against Austin, and if they do lose, then the only scenario that it helps them with is if Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota draw. In that scenario, then you're right. A point is better. If the Quakes lose next weekend and Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota draw, that is not a likely scenario. That is a minuscule downside to losing, the points here, to dropping the points here. I mean, first of all, it's banking on the fact that they lose against Austin, which is a really, really weird thing to hinge your season on. And once again, just feels like a very reactive philosophy to approach these late game scenarios. And I mean, second of all, I don't think it's that likely that Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota draw. Both of those teams need a win really to get into those playoffs. Neither of them are going to be comfortable with the draw. I don't expect that game to end in a tie. I just think that it's such an unlikely scenario that as such a minuscule downside that it's completely wouldn't have even been on my radar. And I think that, being able to secure that playoff spot with, in that second half and go for the win is such a huge momentum shifting confidence boost, huge for this organization. And I just think that he misplayed that. I don't know why he was putting all of his eggs on that basket. I don't know if Jamon, you have any other thoughts. You know the scenarios and odds better than I do here, but that's just like a baffling strategy to me.
Yeah, I think playing for the draw in any situation other than your backs to the wall in probably about the 85th minute on, doesn't make sense. But to his point about they're sending numbers forward, well, guess how you get successful on counterattacks? When other teams send numbers forward, you should be looking for the opportunity to put a dagger in if they're sending their numbers forward. But, part of that means you have to have the players, on the field that can do that. And I get the Montero sub. Look, I do. I get it because honestly, like I said, I would have probably subbed Montero on 5 minutes into the game after they got the first goal. But at that point, you need that Jack Skane, someone who's going to push the envelope in the right situation. You need to trust Christian Espinoza. You need to trust someone like a Jack Skane. You need to trust a Cade Cowell a bit. Although, good night, the passing from Cade. You have to trust them when they have the opportunity to press it going forward. They're not the guys you are asking to stay back and play deep defensively. So send 3 or 4 guys forward and keep everyone else back and give them the chance to hit on the counter. It doesn't mean you have to send all 11 players forward and just, go all out. It just means you take the chances that are available to you. And I think that's all we're asking for. I don't think we're asking for a balls to the walls mentality where, we're sending everyone forward, including Danielle on a last second corner kick or something like that and going that crazy with it. But I think to ask to send 4 or 5 guys forward on a counter opportunity in the last, 5 minutes plus stoppage of the game is the right thing to do. You should be, hedging your bets both directions. You should be securing the point by keeping, your defenders in place, but also you should be pushing for the 3 points that secures the win when the opportunity presents itself. And the thing I'm most upset about, as I said, is what happened at the end in the decision to go to the corner flag. That I did not agree with at all. I think that was absolutely the worst decision I've seen, honestly, from this team and this staff this season. And I'm okay, by the way, a lot of people are complaining about draws, but, on the road, typically a draw is fine. On the road, typically you would go into FC Dallas and walk away with a point and be pretty happy with it because they're below you in the table, right? And you keep them below you in the table. But it's a different situation when you get to this point in the season and playoffs are on the line. The math is different. The mentality has to be different to go along with it.
And even that strategy, I don't think it's done very well for the Earthquakes this season. I totally understand, Jamon, that in MLS, if you can draw all your games on the road and win at home, you are generally going to have a better season than not. But even with that mentality, the Quakes have only won 2 road games in 17 tries this season. They have not done well enough on the road. I think they'd be better served getting more aggressive on the road and playing for more wins on the road. I just think that across the board, Luchi, especially in these last few months, has been really conservative when just a few well-timed risks, a few choice moments to be aggressive would have been a world of difference for this team at this stage when it comes down to the line.
Yeah, and I want to add to that too, because this came up in the midweek press conference with regard to just the fact that most of the team is at this point healthy, or are healthy enough to be in the match day 18, which is probably most important. And they're, Paul Marie talked about the competition and training when I asked him about it, and that players, are kind of pushing one another. But they're. I just didn't, where is that on game day then? Where is the pushing the other team out of the way? Where's the competitive fire just wasn't there for 90 minutes. And with a team that has as many healthy bodies, they're not limping into the end of the season here. They're limping in results wise, but they're not limping in with a roster that's, just spending all their time in the trainer's room. There needs to be a higher energy. And I know there's also the mentality of get into the playoffs and then turn it on. But that's a risky strategy. You want to hit the playoffs if you're in the playoffs, running and steamrolling teams to get in so that you can continue that momentum moving forward. I think, Jamon, to your point, we may very well be watching the Quakes at Dallas in a couple weeks time for the play-in game.
Probably the most likely scenario.
Yeah, what did they learn tonight that's going to make it a better result in 2 weeks time? I don't know.
I guess they didn't give away any strategy for the playoffs.
When you talk with that, Robert, you talk about the mentality, but that goes back to Luchi Gonzalez. And I was really disappointed, actually, with the way that he kind of washed his hands of that late game corner situation. He said, well, I can't control what Jamiro Montero does with the ball in those final minutes. But I absolutely don't think that is true. I think that by subbing off, your Jeremy Obobisi, bringing on Judson, and then subbing off Christian Espinosa, and bringing on Jonathan Mensah, you're very clearly communicating to your team that the only goal here is to hold on to this point, and that's what they should be doing at all costs. And you're not urging your team to go forward. I mean, that goes back to Luchi Gonzalez. He can't absolve himself of the decision not to counterattack late in the game. I mean, he is not the kind of coach like who's disengaged. He is, on the edge of the touchline, engaged with this team. That is 100% something that he has control of.
Yeah, and I agree. He can't absolve himself of it, and he certainly can't absolve himself of the responsibility he has for 14 days now to get this team as fired up as possible, and to really make leave no question on decision day. I'm not sure my heart can take another 2017. I'll be honest with you. I want to be out there at PayPal Park and having this team sort of celebrating their win by halfway through the second half, because they've put the foot on the opponent's neck and proven that they deserve a playoff spot and that they have the talent and the drive to be successful. I worry. Jamon, I'm with you. I feel we're going to be watching a repeat of tonight in a couple weeks time, and I'm not sure tonight I can say with confidence that I expect to see a home game, a playoff game at PayPal this year.
It's like
we'll run the probabilities tomorrow and share them in the patron Slack. So if you want to know what they are, I'll there. Be checking them out. We will be telling you.
What does it matter if the Quakes have control over their destiny if they're not willing to assert that control?
Right? Yes.
If they're not willing to take control of their destiny, who cares if they have control of their destiny?
The important thing, Alex, is to keep control of your destiny, not actually to achieve your destiny, but just keep control of it.
That's such a weak mentality. I just am so frustrated by that. That is such an embarrassing choice to make.
Well,
so look, I do want to say one thing. So Ryan's made an interesting comment here, and he doesn't mean it as a positive, right? He's going to play for penalties even in the playoffs, but let's be fair. The Quakes have set themselves up very well to be the team nobody wants to play, because they can defend for an entire half, push it. Because, by the way, until you get to the semis, I think it is, or conference semis. Anyway, until you get to there is no extra time. You go straight from the game to penalties. There's only extra time, I think, for the last 3 rounds. So MLS Cup, semis, and I think conference semis. So the Quakes have Danielle. I mean, honestly, do you like them in a shootout situation over other teams, given the fact that you've got Danielle in goal? Maybe that's the secret weapon. No, but if you're so, we'll put it this way.
Sorry,
Put it this-
I
absolutely
don't mind
not.
having goal, but
Hang on a second. You're on the road. You're trying to win on the road. You're going into Portland. Do you like your chances, better in regulation against a Portland? Do you like your chances better 5v5 with Danielle up against David Bingham to end the game? Come on, fun topic here. What do you like? Win it in regulation or win it in penalties? What are you gonna go for more?
I just think that I think that humans generally, Jamon, are very bad at weighing low risk probabilities.
Oh, I
And-
know they're really bad.
and I think that
comments in the chat tonight.
I
I know
think-
how bad we are at weighing probabilities. Let me tell you.
I think both of those are very low probabilities. Whether it's a 0.0001% chance and a 0.01% chance of the Earthquakes win is if they're playing in Portland away in like a playing game. I mean, you can wash your hands of this season, Jamon. I just the Quakes have never won in Portland. What is to say that they're going to go and get the win?
Well, they were doing well in Portland up until Jack Skane got hurt in Leagues Cup. So ever since then, it's gone poorly in Portland. No, Robert, your thoughts? Does this ability of keeping in mind that the last time the Quakes were in the playoffs, they lost 5-0 to the Vancouver Whitecaps in the first round. Does this Luchi team, while they may be a little bit too conservative, do you think it helps them in the playoffs when they're likely to have to play, because of their position on the table at this point, they're very likely to have to play on the road a bunch of away playoff games? Does that kind of more conservative mentality then give them a better shot to be able to find a way to get out?
It's a great question, and tonight is a difficult case study to talk about that, because if the Quakes were truly playing defensive, it would have been interesting to see how that second half unfolded. Daniel had to make some pretty good saves tonight, and then he has all season. Let's be honest, the Quakes would not be anywhere without him. And if that were could the Quakes have played to a draw? Okay, but I don't know if they would have had the goal in the first place, and I'm, kind of to your point, Jamon, scoring early is difficult. You're never going to wipe a goal off the board and say, no, that was too early, take it back, but it does make a really tough challenge to play purely defensively on the road for 70, 80 minutes. I don't think it's a strategy I want to see. Unfortunately, we have a Quakes team that probably is going to, maybe have that, 8th place finish, but, not looking, confidently that they're going to get that 8th place finish. And, who knows if they get anything but one home game if they happen to get into that round of 3. So, they're going to have to be road warriors, and they haven't done a lot this season to prove that they can be road warriors. And so I'm with you, Alex. These look like pretty low percentages options for draws or winning on penalties. And by the way, I while we have a great goalkeeper in San Jose, no doubt about it, I don't think I've ever gone into a penalty kick shootout with one team, the favorite over the other just because their goalkeeper is better.
Sporting Kansas City, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Tim Melia is like God mode in the playoffs.
Okay,
People are pointing out that I forgot about 2020. They're correct. That
True.
was the last time.
It can happen.
And we did. And by the way, we got an iconic Wando moment out of that game, which was fantastic too. But Tim Melia is not who you want to be facing in the play-in game for sure.
I just, tonight was not a must-draw game. And I guess you could argue, it wasn't a must-win game, although it would have been a heck of a nice game to come out victory. So, the Quakes haven't had their backs against the wall. Like we say, they're controlling their destiny, but not doing anything with it. And next week, their backs are against the wall. Kansas City did get the win tonight. Minnesota got the win. And so, either of those teams, if they pull off the victory, could pip the Quakes if they're not able to get 3 points. And they should be treating it as such, hopefully not scoreboard watching and relaying in games around the league as to what's happening at this point. No, I think the lesson is clear. You've won at home. You've been able to win at home, and just take care of business at home. And it's not a golden point situation anymore. It's let's win 3 points and show we deserve to be in the playoffs and can put on a good show in that play-in game, which is where they're likely to be.
I mean, look, turning to Austin though, this is, Austin are out of the playoffs, and so hopefully that is gonna make this easier for San Jose. But San Jose
or
have
they have
not.
nothing to play for, and they can just go all out and try a bunch of stuff.
That's also true. It's going to be an unpredictable game, I think, because of that. And San Jose have not won in any of their last 3 games against Austin. They tied 2-2, tied 3-3, drew 2-2. That's their last 3 games. They have not won. I don't know why. It was a good idea to go into this game needing a win. Austin, regardless of where they're at in the table, is not an easy team just to walk through.
Yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, does SCC still have Melia? The answer is yes, they do. They'll have Melia.
Trouble.
Can double check if he started tonight or not. They've been kind of going back and forth between him and Bergkamp. I think he's been injured a bit this season, but last I knew he was again the starter in Kansas City. So
Yeah,
the answer to that question is yes.
I'm looking at this now, and someone else can help me with the math here. But the point tonight, I don't know how many additional. I guess it does open up the tiebreaker that you don't have to worry about losing out on wins if Sporting and Minnesota had tied and the Quakes lose against Austin. Fine, but that's such a if you're playing, Alex, to your point, that's a loser's mentality to be thinking about.
This is the game. This is the game he's talking about.
Yeah.
Sporting Kansas City, Minnesota, and who's playing at home in that game? I don't think I know off the top of my head. Looks like Sporting Kansas City is going to be the ones at home, so they have the edge being the home team.
So yeah, and Minnesota's playing with house money in a sense that they finally got out of the Adrian Heath holding pattern that they've been in for 7 years, and maybe they're going to feel pretty excited about things. I can't see that game ending in a tie unless it's just all out craziness that gets to a last minute equalizer. But man, again, the only position that really matters is where San Jose is right now, and I would say that if they want to be a legitimate threat in the playoffs, then it's got to be a win, so that they can at least say have a win that they can kind of build off of when going into that game against likely maybe Portland, maybe Dallas, depending on things.
Is this not like a playoff game? Is this game against? I mean, you have to win in order to make it in for San Jose. Does that mean this is just like a bonus playoff game?
When they say like every game from here on's a playoff game, it's definitely
kind of is. Yeah.
Does that mean the Quakes already made the playoffs, Jamon? Does that absolve Luchi Gonzalez?
They have made it. They're in 8th place. Congratulations to the San Jose Earthquakes. Their next game is a playoff game. They get 2 play-in games before they actually get to the real
first
playoffs.
33 games of the playoffs were pretty rough, I tell you. Week after week.
All right, guys. Any further final comments before we wrap the show up? We are a bit over an hour at this point. Thanks to all the fans who've hung in with us. Good crowd tonight. Thanks for all your comments. I very diverse comments, but I think a lot of people. I think KMJ Vet kind of sums this up as to what people are thinking right now about the next game. It's Austin with the role of spoiler versus the team that seems to be afraid to go for the jugular right now. So, we'll see, because this has to be a game like Luchi's going like, that we need to keep working toward a game where we are all in for 90 minutes. And it's like, well, that kind of needs to be the next game, because if you don't, it might be your last game. And so, this is the game. Like they have to put it all obviously on the line, but this is the table right now. You got Seattle, Vancouver currently in a 0-0 draw. Still, I think the only game left tonight. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's true. And so now we are looking at this area of the table right now, Portland through Minnesota. And as has been said, if the Quakes win, they're in. If the Quakes get a draw, then they're going to have to see if we get a winner out of Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota, and what happens in the FC Dallas game against Colorado. Do we have an official makeup game day for that game?
I think it's next Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be next Saturday. So there would be like 2 games next Saturday in all of MLS. There's not that many, so pretty much you can just circle that one on your calendar.
That game against the Galaxy on the 21st makes me sick. The Galaxy are the last team you want to trust to have to get a point to help you get the playoffs. I'm sorry, that's the worst possible.
Even at home. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Lord.
Well, one thing you can bank, you can take it to the bank. The Galaxy definitely worse than the Quakes this year in the final table. no matter what at this point. Okay. So with that, those of you who have been around here for a while know that we've got a Patreon. We would love it if you would be a part of that. If you have not yet signed up for the Patreon, $2 gets you in because you like us, because we're definitely not writing enough articles to say you're going to get a lot of article previews. But I will say, off season is the time. Colin Etnier is tuning up the band right now. It is almost Colin Etnier season. It doesn't officially become that until, we get to roster decision time in December. But we're getting closer and closer to Colin season. If you want to make sure that you get those articles the moment that they hit, get in there. $2 a month gets you access to early access to the articles, or just because you love the show and you want to be able to give a little bit to us. We are looking at trying to do some travel depending upon exactly what happens with playoffs here. And then also we have a $5 tier. You can get into the patron Slack. It was, of course, popping off tonight with a lot of very happy and then very angry set of fans. But, you were probably feeling the same emotions they were. So if you would like to feel that elation or commiserate, whichever you're feeling at the moment with another group of fans, definitely our patron Slack is the place to be. You can get in there for $5. And if you have a lot of money and really want to make sure that we get in some good travel next year, $15 a month is our top tier. Okay. If you have any questions about the Slack, by the way, feel free, just reach out, DM me, and I will try to answer your questions about how that money gets used and how it's been used this season and such. But one of the first things that we did, other than travel this year, one of the big investments was on a set of lapel microphones that we used after the last Cali Classico game and after the both Cali Classico home games. Alex, Robert, and our erstwhile colleague who, has been absent for a little while, Phil, but he's hoping to be back for the playoffs. They were able to try those out first at the Cali Classico that was at Stanford. And then 4 of us got onto the pitch and were able to do a show. We'd love to come back and do that same type of show. Your investment in us allowed us to be able to do that. And we hope to be able to do that again during the playoffs if there are home games. And, that's something that there needs to be. It's very important to be able to get home games, to be able to go onto the pitch and be able to do a show down there. So hoping that will happen. So final thoughts, Alex, Robert, before we shut it down for the night. Alex, I'll pitch it over to you first.
Well, everything hinges on the last game of the year against Decision Day against Austin at PayPal Park. Everyone has got to be there. So I'm really looking forward to that game. Regardless of my anxiety or my nerves or my confidence levels, it's going to be a fun one. I hope to see all of you there. I know we're going to bring a big show for all of you, regardless of the results in that one. And so, yeah, I'm disappointed that the Quakes have forced it down to the bitter end yet again, but it couldn't have happened any other way. I mean, this is the San Jose Earthquakes we're talking about. This is, a marginally improved San Jose Earthquakes team, but I don't think we're talking about a club that has, made any paradigm shifts over the last few years. And once again, they're finding themselves in this spot. So looking forward to being there with you fellas in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be an anxious wait until then.
John Jay with the reminder. Also, doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to the show. We are 87 away from 1,000. Everyone gets a bunch of cool new toys, maybe for playoffs. If we can get 87 more subs before the playoffs, we get some new cool toys, if and when this team makes the playoffs. Robert, final thoughts on the night.
Yeah, kind of to your point, Jamon, it's not going to be up to the players. It's not going to be up to the coaches. who are going to decide if we as a show can put in our best potential as we head into the playoffs. That's on us, and I take full responsibility for putting out the best show that I can.
We're in control of our destiny, Robert.
We are in control of our destiny.
We're in control of how good this show is.
That's right. That's right. And hope one day we might even go 90 minutes if you'll all stick around with us, as opposed to
Are people
checking out.
We've definitely gone 90
last
minutes before.
last
I
season
think we
the
have.
Quakes? Or are they talking about last season the show? Were we so bad last season and it got better this season? I'm
No,
not
no,
sure.
no.
We got
Good
more Robert
paradigm, good
Jonas
paradigm.
this season though, so that's true.
But I want to say this. Every team will tell you that they want to be in it on the last game of the season, and with the expanded playoffs, most teams can say they're in it to the last game of the season. But if PayPal Park is anything like we saw back in I think it was 2017 when Marcos Ariño scored that goal, and just the lid flew off of the stadium, and the excitement that came about from that. That's what fans want. That's the kind of excitement that gets fans coming back, next season and growing, the support for this team. So, the players and the coaches know what they need to do. We've asked them, they told us they need to put it all together, and so we'll hold it to them. But let's all be out there and see what we can do on our side.
Well, look, win or lose, I guess draw is still an option too, but whatever the result of the final game on decision day, you know that you can count on the Aftershock being here. We have now made it with one more show to go through 3 complete seasons of this show. We have had a show for you after every single one of those games, even if it was a Wednesday night in Colorado, as I like to say. We are going to be present. We might be the only ones present, but we are going to be present. So with huge thanks to Alex and Robert for all their time so far this season. One more game to go, fellas. Colin Etnar also sends, his regards tonight, as does Philip Leyva. And Phil is optimistic that the Quakes will hold in there long enough to be able to rejoin us again this year as well. So whichever is the case, we will no show after the Olympia match. We skipped the exhibitions. I mean, we need our downtime. I mean, what can we say? So no show after the Olympia match. No, partially because there's no way to see it, because it's not going to be anywhere that I think we can see. So that's typically been the bigger issue, actually. But hopefully everyone has a great 2 weeks preparation as the Quakes get ready to face Austin on decision day at home. Whether you're at the stadium, whether you're at home, be sure to tune in to the Aftershock for the reactions after we find out whether the San Jose Earthquakes will be in the playoffs or not. Thanks everyone for joining us again tonight. Alex, Robert, thank you as always. Fans, thank you for all your great comments. We will see you on decision day. We're out.